Hey, Mark here, and I have a really fun giveaway for you today. I have 5 digital copies of the Sanaa Lathan directed film On the Come Up. All you have to do is just listen to this episode, shoot me a message, and just be like, hey, Mark, I would like to enter the raffle. There are no guarantees to win, but you could get a digital copy of On the Come Up. So yeah, a young gifted rapper faces a dilemma on her way to stardom and learns it only takes one battle to change her life. Directed by Sanaa Lathan, On the Come Up stars Jamil C. Gray, Divine Joy Randolph, Lil Yachty, and Cliff Method Man Smith. Available to buy on digital and DVD now, rated PG-13 from Paramount Pictures. Yeah, so just shoot me a message, and I hope you enjoy this episode of Hell or High Water. I love this movie. Hello and welcome to Movies, Films, and Flicks. I am Mark Hoffmeyer, and join me is a man who just got bopped in the schnozola. It's John Levingood.
All I said was good morning. That was not an appropriate proportional response to good morning.
I love that. I love Jeff Bridges asking a guy if he got bopped on his schnozola.
On the schnozola.
It's such a wonderful moment. And oh man, I love Hell or High Water, John. I love this movie.
It's an amazing movie. It's funny you say that because right when that happened, I basically repeated the line after Jeff Bridges asked the question. I looked at Sarah and she's like, schnozola? This is one of those movies, I swear, it's like no line of dialogue, however casual, is wasted, but more so, almost every line of dialogue is either meaningful or very exploratory of characters or quippy or so, like every word matters in this movie. It's very impressive.
And even the quiet moments I love just as much. I love the dialogue. Like, remember that, like, were they white or black? Are you talking about their souls? But right. The quiet moments too. I mean, there's that scene where you have Tanner and Toby Howard. They're on their ranch. It's magic hour. Sun looks beautiful. And it's just the two of them wrestling in front of a fence together, having a quiet moment. Or even just the way that Toby hands Tanner the Lone Star beer because they're down to one and they share it. Like, it's just those little moments in this that make it, like, it's so lived in. And the reason this is weird, this movie came out in 2016, nominated for Best Picture in 2017. Jeff Bridges was nominated for Best Supporting Actor. Taylor Sheridan, who's now an institution, was nominated for his writing. So now he's doing Yellowstone in 1883, and the guy's like, a super producer of his own. But I just sort of messaged you the other day, and I was like, John, you love Hell or High Water. I love Hell or High Water. Let's just talk about it, because
absolutely,
this movie doesn't leave me, John. It doesn't. It's just there. You and I watch so many movies that for a movie to stick around in our heads for 6 years has to mean something. And the more I research it, it's crazy. So Taylor Sheridan, the guy who wrote this, he was an actor. He worked on Sons of Anarchy. He was on Veronica Mars. Then he got a role. His first screenplay sold, which was Sicario, which is insane. Second screenplay is Hell or High Water. And he wrote it in 3 weeks. He wrote the first draft, and that was the shooting script for this movie. This movie shot in 5 weeks, only because Chris Pine's schedule, because he had to go to Star Trek Beyond. Chris Pine was only on this movie for about 3 weeks. He did one scene with Jeff Bridges. And he wrote this on final draft that his wife paid for by maxing out her credit cards, Taylor Sheridan. So they were living in a one-bedroom apartment. He decided to stop acting. He wanted to go into writing, so he had Sicario, and then he had Hell or High Water. But yeah, he wrote this in 3 weeks because his wife maxed out her credit cards and just said, write. And we have this movie, which is Oscar nominated.
Well, and a lot of wins.
Yeah. I mean, this movie won a lot of awards. It's critically, but you know what I love, John? This doesn't seem, okay, you can correct me, but this doesn't seem like an Oscar movie. It is, but it isn't. It's very quiet. It's very, I don't know. I just love that this was nominated for Best Picture.
So I literally had this discussion after I watched it with my girlfriend, and the comment was that this won all these awards. She was looking it up. It won all. I think it won maybe Best Picture, Best Supporting Actor for Jeff Bridges, editing, many others were at least nominated. But it was a big winner, right? And she's looking this up, and I was commenting that this is not really. It's an amazing film. It's an amazing film that has bank robbing in it, and the bank robbing scenes make for a great film. But if I'm thinking of great bank robbing movies for sheer entertainment value, this doesn't come up. I wouldn't even think of this. I think of this as a relationship drama that focuses primarily on two major relationships, right? We've got our two rangers and our two brother bank robbers, and it's their relationships and all the people who they touch along their respective journeys kind of careening towards each other tragically. But these relationships are so exciting that I don't even think about the bank robberies. And when you see the bank robbing scenes, they're either funny, they're intense, they're thoughtful. Each scene is totally different flavor, right? But like, I think of Den of Thieves, I think of The Town, I think of Inside Man. These are the kinds of things that come to mind when I think of a great bank robbing movie. And yet those aren't necessarily films of even the same echelon. So this is it. But yeah, the relationships to this, the lines, it's its own territory entirely. And you mentioned the quiet scenes where they're kind of slap fighting, wrestling. And so Sarah looks at me when that scene happened, and she said, "It's been quiet too long, and this is too perfect. This is where things are going to start to get bad." And that really was. It was like an hour and 15 or an hour and 10 into the movie, and we were rolling into where things start to go wrong. The movie is doing that. It's giving you that quiet before the storm, or it's just showing you this nice rug before it rips it out from under you.
And it sure does. It really does. And you know what I love is the structure of this movie is very simple. It's a very simple structure. Cops, bank robbers. Yes, there is a subplot about stealing from a bank to give back to the bank, but it's still very simple. You could, and what that does though, it allows for character moments. So there's no twists and turns. There's no major gunfights. There's one gunfight, but I mean, Tanner Howard, Ben Foster ends that in a couple minutes. It's by focusing on the characters, I think this is what makes this movie so good. And when you talk about the town, I know the chases are cool, whatever, but the moments in the town that I think about are when Jeremy Renner is like, when Ben Affleck's like, "I need you to come, and I don't want you to ask any questions." And Renner's like, "Are you driving or me?" Like, that's, like, I think about the character beats in that movie, the friendship in the town. That's what I think about. So, like, with this one, just watching, and you know what I love, too, is this movie is you lived in Texas for a while. I don't know if you got this far into the country in Texas, but they don't insult Texans, and they don't insult the country folk. Like,
sure.
Country. Sometimes, I love a movie called Take Shelter because it filmed in the Midwest, and it doesn't treat the Midwest people's, "Oh, shucks." Like, oh, this one, you just have hard-nosed the waitress, she's a real rattlesnake. Like, what don't you want? There's a dignity to these people. And, even that guy who talked about the rope, they still make them menacing. I mean, they're not idealizing the country here. They're not saying, this is a 1950s Americana. Like, there are some violent people in this town. But no one's insulted, and it feels very authentic with the actors that are hired. Remember the like farmers or cowboys in the diner when Jeff Bridges goes to question them after the robbery?
Witnesses.
Yeah.
They along with like 8 other characters should have been in their own 60-second character episode.
Yeah.
That guy was great. How they were recognizing him, this, that, and the other, but he even said, "Those boys, I don't get it. The time of bank robbing and getting away with it and living to spend the money, those days are over." But he said it like he's lived in a time where he's maybe seen that as a child.
Yeah.
Where he's heard of this as a child. He was saying it matter of fact. It wasn't like a joke. That's the kind of line on paper where you think it's a joke. Mm-hmm. But that line reading was that was a lived-in statement.
Yeah, no, it's such a lived-in statement too. And another thing I love is when they go to drop the money off to the lawyer to put the money in a
Oh,
trust. I love that guy. You know, he's like, it makes my teeth hurt. And they talked about the 25,000. They kept her enough to kind of take the land. And you know what I like though is that guy. You know, if this was Matchstick Men or something or a twisty noir film, that guy would double cross them. There's no double crosses in this movie. There's not one double cross. This is as straightforward as they come. It won't make your teeth hurt. It's and that's fine. Like I'm cool. I love Matchstick Men, so I'm not like dead dogging on Matchstick Men. I'm just saying it's very refreshing sometimes just to watch a straightforward plot unfold. Uh, this movie is so welcomely straightforward, and I love it. And you know what's crazy? That wrestling scene came about because they didn't have much money to shoot this. They had to shoot this really fast, one or two takes, fast, because they didn't have Pine that long. So that scene where they're wrestling, they had a lightning break, so all the crew separated. And when it got a little better, it was magic hour. So the DP, Giles Nutchins, and the director, David Mackenzie, who made a movie called Starred Up, which I love. Also, Giles Nutchins, the DP, he shot a movie called A Montana Story that came out in 2021 in festivals, 2022 this year, and it's beautiful, John. He also shot Swim Fan. I just want to let you know that. But they're wrestling. That was all. They didn't plan on that. They just went out and Ben Foster and Chris Pine just started wrestling. Like that wasn't in the script. That just happened because they had downtime. And you know what I love too is there's not much coverage in this movie. There's not a lot of over the shoulders. There's not a lot of camera angles because they just didn't have time for it. So I love the two shots where Ben Foster and Chris Pine, who've worked together in 3 movies together, which is kind of cool, are just sitting in a chair together and the camera's looking at them, or they're both leaning on their fence, or when Jeff Bridges and I have his name right here. I'm looking at it. Here it comes. Oh, Gil Birmingham, who I love. He's really good in Yellowstone.
who plays Alberto?
Yeah. When they're just sitting at the restaurant together in the 2 chairs, like, and then they're looking out. Like, they didn't have time to do a lot of coverage. So I love the scenes where people are just sitting on their porch, sitting in a restaurant, sitting on their ranch, looking out and talking. That they had to do that because of the schedule. I mean, they only had 5 weeks to prep this movie, which is nuts because they just went, make it. Sicario's hot. Make it. They only had Chris Pine for a certain amount of time. So they just got out there, and this feels like a small crew. Even the writer makes an appearance as the cowboy taking all the cattle across the road. That's Taylor
really?
Sheridan. Yeah.
He has the best line.
Yeah. My kids, he's the writer. Yeah.
He's another great 60-second character. I actually wrote this down. He's saying, "I wish I could help you boys." He's like, "Yeah, right. 21st century, and I'm racing a fire in a river with a herd of cattle. And I wonder why my kids don't want to do this for a living." Yeah, it's like, but it's such a what a perfect thing. It's like that's what he grew up doing. It made sense to take over your family business, and now he's probably got a bunch of kids like trying to develop an app or something who don't want anything to do with like this physical labor. Mm-hmm. Just the times, right? But like he says that, and I laugh, but I feel it.
He's telling the truth, but he's also making kind of a joke about it, right?
But again, not one wasted line though. No. It tells you it's painting such a beautiful watercolor stroked brushwork of Texas. It really is. And again, like you said, these are a lot of accurate momentary vignettes into the minds of the people who live in more rural Texas and small towns. From my little gleanings, I only lived there for a few years, but it feels, I feel like that tells a better picture than I could have said from living and driving around there for 3 years.
You just watch it and you get a vibe for it. And let me ask you a question, John. I'm not trying to break down Texas into stereotypes, but these 2 beers are featured a lot. So you and I, we somehow go manage.
Shiner Bach.
Yeah, we get called. We go manage a convention in Austin, Texas, which you used to, or a food event. I manage a food event in Austin. We get the call, nevertheless, whatever it is. We get the call. We go work, then we go have dinner. There's 2 beers in bottles, Shiner Bach or Lone Star. You can grab the nice Bach. You can grab like a nice kind of heavier beer, or you gonna take that Lone Star lager. Which one are you gonna grab?
I'm doing Shiner Bach. Yeah. I had a big Shiner Bach phase, as it turns out. So.
Yeah, I'd probably do Shiner Bach too. I think if you're out at the beach, I might do a Lone Star just because the whole lager aspect. But yeah, every time I went out, I like Shiner Cheer a lot too. It's good seasonal
Is that like the
Shiner
equivalent
beer.
of Coors Banquet?
Yeah, it's like their holiday beer. It's really good, man. Like I love Shiner Bock. I actually love all of Oktoberfest season in the United States because you get a like everybody and their mother makes a Oktoberfest during this time. So I'm like, yes. But yeah, all right. So Shiner Bock, I like it. We both settled on that. But watching him just chug it. Oh, I love that line where he's like, I'm gonna need you. I need you sober. Beer can't get you drunk.
Who the hell ever got drunk from beer? What a
Ben,
great line.
and you know what I love a lot about Ben Foster in this movie is he drilled one of his teeth for this. Then the studio were like, you're not doing that. So then he had to go put a cap on it, but he made sure the cap was longer than his normal tooth and yellow. He's just a maniac. But you know what I like about his character is he does rob that other bank. He does make some mistakes and he sets them back a day, yada yada. But he's still not that crazy classic mess up of a brother. If that like he does kill the guys in the bank, but he had to. He's not. I'm not gonna say he's an angel on Toby's ear. He's more like a devil on Chris Pine's shoulder. But he's not that classic. You just you hate him so much because you're like, get him out of here. He's just gonna mess up your operations. That makes like.
Right. You know he's dangerous, but you don't look at him as the problem.
Exactly. And he does make mistakes, but he does get them more money at the bank. He's clearly, when he gets woken up, he clearly has night terrors and he wakes up screaming. So who knows what happened to him in prison. He is a murderer. You know, when he's killing those cops, he's smiling, which Jeff Bridges makes a great point of saying. However, he's not I hate that trope, John, where you're watching the brother, or the son, and you're like, this guy is just he's just gonna be problems. Like John Wick's.
He's a ticking time bomb, and somehow the main character doesn't see it enough to circumvent it. No, yeah, I'm with you. He in many ways seems to be kind of a shit, but at the same time, he's a guy who sobs over not being around in his mother's last days to help, even though he's not much. You never struck me as one to help clean. Well, I could have done this, that, or the other. I would have tried, but he was afraid to even open the cracked bedroom door all the way to look directly upon the hospital bed in the bedroom. He loves his brother, and you can tell. And even though he's crazy and he's doing it for some crazy, partially nefarious pleasures, he's sacrificing himself, probably knowing he's not coming back from it when they part ways for the last time.
Yeah.
When he creates that diversion, he's saying I love you, and you know he's saying goodbye.
Absolutely. And it's kind of interesting too when he's quoting like, I'm the king of the prairie, and then Jeff Bridges headshots him. But I like the way he goes down. He's not trying to be noble. Sometimes in these movies, like, I'll get your back, brother. And then he runs out in front of everybody swinging a sword, and he gets hit with 3 arrows, and then it's Sean Bean from Lord of the Rings. But
there's no bravado.
No, this one he is just killing people. He is just murdering folks. And I'm not laughing about that. I laugh because but it's another interesting way to treat him. And also too, like the little things that Ben Foster does with his character when they are at the casino, when he does the thing, when he turns around, oh, who are you? And he slicks his hair back.
Right.
Just the way that he interacts with people. There's so much little
He's
charm.
a great flirt.
Yeah,
he's a great flirt.
He's a wonderful flirt. Like he turns it on.
In your last days in the nursing home, you're gonna look back and think of me, and you're gonna giggle. But then it cuts, and it's so funny, right? Yeah. It's this funny, cheeky, and then it cuts to them banging while poor Chris Pine is trying to sleep with his jacket pulled over his head, like a college roommate, on a Saturday night.
Yeah, he's a terrible roommate to have, but the way he turned it on, the charm that Ben Foster has in that scene, and one of my favorite moments, Jeff Bridges differentiates the two characters, the two brothers, and Jeff Bridges says that, let's see, Tanner would be the guy to buy a truck and jet skis, which makes me very happy, and then spend all that money.
Right, you got it.
Yeah, he'd spend it all just so he could go steal again. And then he said Chris Pine, he's like, I don't see anything new here. Toby, I don't see anything new here. But I love they brought up jet skis because I could totally see Tanner Howard on a jet ski. But what's interesting is he's also not a caricature, but he's one of those guys that just is not going to exist on this earth long. Like he's not built to for longevity on this planet. Ben Foster's character, Tanner
Well,
Howard.
and there's even that joke. How'd you manage to stay out of prison the last few years?
Yeah.
It's been hard. It's been difficult.
Yeah.
It's a funny line, but it's one of those things where I feel like he's belching the truth, but making it funny subconsciously as he says it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's been difficult.
And I bet you it has been. I mean, there's something with this guy. He's not going to he's not going to repent, this dude. He's going to do that. But I still think the love between the brothers is good. You have a good relationship between them. Also, Chris Pine. I love Chris Pine's performance in this. His interaction with his son, where he's like, "You want a beer?" He's like, "You told me not to be like you." He's like, "Good boy."
Right.
That's a cool scene. Also, I really like the scenes with his ex-wife. Oh, one of my favorite lines is like, he's like, "Why?" He's like, "Why do the sweet girls get all riled up?" And Chris Pine's like, "I don't know. I just got the mean ones." That's just a funny line, but I really like his interactions with his Malin. Oh, Ireland. She was in The Dark and the Wicked. They brought in a really good actress for that small role. But it's just, I like how he's not trying to win her back. She doesn't want him back, but he's still trying to do him right. I like that about him.
He seems very broken by the world. The only thing that's keeping him together is this mission.
Yep. That he doesn't even know if his kids want this ranch, but he got them oil, and he's making
more.
But
he knows it'll financially protect him, yeah. Right? It's like he's just on this mission, but he has very little life in him, and you almost see the hint of a would-be spark when a prostitute is trying to work him. And that just shows the fragility too. He's sitting there with like $7,000 in chips in a casino, and a girl who is clearly a prostitute in this situation is coming up, and he's. And I don't want to use the word desperate, but there's something about his emotional state that made him not receptive to anybody, including her, but a few kind words, and his eyes start to perk like there was hope.
Yeah.
Almost.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thing. But that's it. In the end, like when he succeeds, when he wins, it's not like he won.
No. I mean, he still has an enemy for life.
It's like, but it's almost like everything that he was doing, while it's for a good cause, was almost like performing penance. Very, very, something very dire about it. Even though there's so many light scenes when we have levity with his brother, or just some of these kooky scenes with Jeff Bridges and his partner. Good Lord, that is so awkwardly funny, and that relationship is so amazing. All those engine rips and just constantly digging into them. And when Ben Foster shoots Alberto, Jeff Bridges, as the actor, I'm not even talking about the character, it's like whatever he mustered in that moment, I feel like I've seen this scene 100 times and I've never seen it close to this. And all the other 99 times, they all kind of follow a pattern of a no, or no, he literally belched a sound. He did not know how to react. He was instantaneously destroyed and did not even know how to react. It wasn't it wasn't crying. It was this splatter, like a water balloon of emotion. And he was, it's like he couldn't even keep his hands coordinated for a moment. It just, and you saw how much he cared. In one blurted syllable. It's just everything about this movie is so powerful.
That was the Oscar nomination right there. And I love what you said too. That reaction he had to him was, yeah, it's not what you saw. Like, it's really interesting. It's not, you're right. It could have been larger than life, but the way he pulled that off was brilliant. And I think a lot of that too is, I mean, listen, you have really good actors in this movie. I mean, you have exceptional actors, but also David Mackenzie. He first got on my radar. He made a movie called Perfect Sense, which I wasn't really into, but he made a movie called Starred Up with Ben Mendelsohn, which is probably one of the first times I ever saw Ben Mendelsohn. And the way the performances in that were unbelievable. So there's something about him at this time where he was just getting really wonderful performances. And Taylor Sheridan too. I thought he said something really interesting. He spent a lot of his time on network television, which is Act 1 commercial, Act 2 commercial, climax, commercial, conclusion. And so he learned this really rigid structure that he absolutely hated. So when he wrote his screenplays, he kept every single screenplay from every show he worked on and studied them. So he knew exactly how to break down a screenplay structure. And when he wrote his own, he ignored them because he's like, I don't want to write these. But he did it. He knew the rules first, and then he broke them. Because like think about Sicario. Remember, you've seen Sicario, of course you have.
Well, yeah, in that movie, I feel like Josh Brolin is most of the true magic of line delivery.
And like,
but yes,
like Del Toro and with Emily Blunt, you think she's the main character at first, but then it turns out they just used her to bring her along, and so that's very selfless acting because she just becomes a pawn in the game later on. Like, but I didn't see that movie taking that turn, and I'm not going to say much about Wind River, but he does find these ways to take a simple concept and just make that. I mean, look at the movies. The character, like Emily Blunt, Josh Brolin, Benicio del Toro, the actors in Sicario, and even Cold River, and then this Cold River, yeah. Just the performances, but I think they do a really good job of finding what's important, like you said, not wasting lines, and just somehow tweaking things a little bit where it's familiar, but Ben Foster's not that idiot brother. Jeff Bridges is redeemable. He does care for his partner. They're stealing from banks and then giving it back to the banks, and then they start a trust with the bank. And they're quite cynical. I mean, the way Sicario deals with the border is quite cynical. The way that this movie deals with banks in general is quite cynical. Wind River, I said Cold River. That's another movie with Melissa Leo, I think. But Wind River, it's quite cynical as well. So he finds interesting ways to tell stories that are, they have some good action, they have some good performances, but then there's also a social issue about it as well. But I don't think it's jammed down your throat.
No, I think it's fair.
Yeah.
I think it's a very fair criticism.
Yeah, it's like so. I don't care. I'm happy fawning praise on these movies because I love them. But yeah, I think he's just found a really good way to tell a story, and I mean that's why the dude was acting since '95. He was in Texas Walker Texas Ranger, and then all of a sudden he's a 25-year in the industry success story for writing with Sicario and Hell or High Water.
I want to back up because I want to see Walker Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That you almost said it. I want to see Walker Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Oh, that'd be Chuck Norris against. Oh my gosh, that'd be amazing.
It wouldn't be a long movie. It would be one scene. He just killed the Sawyer family. He just kicked Leatherface's head off. And that'd be the end of the movie.
I want to see an episode of Walker Texas Ranger where he battles the Texas. I want to see that he battles the Firefly family. He battles I don't know what Leatherface's name is. I don't know what that family's name is. But he just goes around killing.
That's the Sawyer family.
The Sawyer. He just goes around killing Ed Gein inspired killers.
So Chuck Norris in The Hero and the Terror, which I think was early 80s. The Terror is this huge guy who's maybe a little slow. It almost is like a big. It's someone who at some point in the movie he gets stabbed. And it's almost like he just looks down. It's almost like the comical scene in The Punisher, the Thomas Jane Punisher, where he stabs Kevin Nash in the chest and he just looks at it and grabs it. But this is with a big knife, he gets stabbed in the midsection. The guy just looks at it because he's this 6'8", kind of hefty farm-fed mammoth of a man who's been on a killing spree. So Chuck Norris has kind of had his battle. Oh. And as I recall, I haven't seen this movie in 20 years. As I recall, when he really kind of Rambos up and puts on some driving gloves to go take him out, he goes to take him out mostly by hand. Whereas originally the goal was to try and arrest him and take him down. And now he's like, no, I've got to take him out. And it's one of these.
Oh gosh.
Oh yeah.
You got to find this and send me the link because I want to see this.
I used to own the VHS back in the when VHS was still the thing.
I need to watch this. I'll look. It's probably on Tubi. I guarantee it.
I don't recall it being good. It didn't even impress teenage John.
Oh, okay.
But it was. Honestly, I might like it more now.
It somehow stuck with you though, which is interesting.
I remember it very. I probably haven't thought of that movie's existence in over a decade.
Oh gosh. All right, I'm looking that up. And so another interesting thing about this movie. Do you want to know? It was $12 million the budget for this. It's not a lot.
Did they pay the actors?
Yeah, exactly. I bet you know what? Probably not, because Bridges, Pine, and Pine. I mean, Foster was big, but he's not going to make that money. That's if you normally that's probably what 6 million, 3 million each, and then Foster probably gets
A
two.
million.
Yeah.
Yeah, at least.
So then
Right.
you're like somewhere around 7 or 8 million. So then you have 3.4 million for the rest of the movie, but they had to have taken pay cuts to work on this. And
Because Foster's perfect for this too. You think of
perfect.
Alpha Dog, Hostage, 310 to Yuma.
Oh, he's the best in that.
He's designed for these wild, unpredictable characters.
And I kind of want to do a Ben Foster series because I love 310 to Yuma. And I
Oh,
also,
it's so good. That's like this though. He's viciously loyal, but morally a monster to anyone else other than his boss's interests and his boss's crew and his like. He was like a junkyard dog
hmm
in that. Amazing and so cold and scary.
Oh yeah, I remember watching that in '08, just thinking this dude's holding his own with Russell Crowe and Christian Bale. Like he's almost stealing the show from these guys. But I also love him too. He'll pop up and leave no trace as a father. In Hostiles, he's back as in the land of the Western. Finest Hours, he's like a PG ship guy with Chris Pine, which makes me laugh. But in Lone Survivor. Oh crap, he was in Lone Survivor. And
Mm-hmm.
Ethan Body Saints. He was in Kill Your Darling. Jeez Louise. I know I just froze here. Oh, remember he was evil in The Mechanic? As soon as he
Yep.
popped up. And also
And I haven't seen it yet, but he's like the kind of cold business boss in Hustle, the new Adam Sandler movie on Netflix.
and he's also in The Punisher, which we were talking about, which makes me really happy.
Right, but he was a total like he was kind of a very like a sappy, nice dweeb in that, which is so off for most of his filmography. Once he became an adult, he became great at these maniacal, vicious, loyal characters.
Yeah.
But I think Spider, what was it? The Punisher. That was close to his transition time because even Alpha Dog was a couple years after that.
Yeah, he tried to do X-Men: The Last Stand as Angel. That didn't work. Then he had
But that whole movie didn't work.
No, that was bad. 30 Days a Night, he was that stranger. Pandorum, he was a hero, which is kind of weird.
That was really cool. Yeah.
And that's Cam
Interesting
Gigante,
role.
your boy Cam Gigante in there.
Hmm.
But yeah, no, I love his the way he goes. And most importantly though for this character is he's totally believable in this role.
Hmm.
Sometimes when actors have to play this role, you can feel they're acting, if that makes sense. You can feel like you can almost hear the actor puff up during like, what does that sound? There's with him, you just see when he pops out with that gun with that shirt, and then when he flips the clip, it's he puts work in and he cared for this character. And it's like, I don't know, I just feel like everyone was on fire for this, but that makes sense though, because the director had a lot of hype from Startup. Like that was a big movie. That was like a big indie film. You had Taylor Sheridan, who was coming off of Sicario. I mean, you had Heat. Jeff Bridges was still in his big phase. He had Crazy Heart, he won his Oscar, then he had True Grit. So this was still big time Jeff Bridges. So it's like I feel like everyone was just on the top of their game on this. And that Giles Nutchins, I love his IMDb page, because this guy, it just makes me laugh because he worked on Swim Fan and Battlefield Earth, and then he also did both Enola Holmes movies. But then he'll go do Montana Story, and he'll do this film. So it's like this guy is capable of. And you know what I love most about this the cinematography is, it's very much so meat and potatoes, but it will go up to a wind chime on a crane, and then when the car's pulling through, then drop down. When there is a remember in the opening bank robbery when they go in and there's the three crosses and the kind of the little car park, the open car park, the way that the wall is, it's sort of see-through. They shoot through that, but it never feels like, hey, look at me. It always feels quite organic to the story. So there's a really simple visual language to Hell or High Water, but it's also very visually interesting. It's never flat, but I wouldn't say it's never Dutch angled into oblivion. So it's a really interesting dynamic of meat and potatoes, shooting, get a great frame, but they also find some really interesting stuff to look at. during that movie, and it's cool. Like, you know, and also I love the car chases too, because there's a scene where Chris Pine, after he got shot, he backs up the truck to get Ben Foster, and I think every time I watch it, I think he's gonna hit Ben Foster when he's backing up
Mm-hmm.
that truck. There's a lot of cool, like they're doing their driving a lot in this. Ben Foster almost got into an accident. He got kind of pissed. He's like, "Why am I driving?" But yeah, I don't know. It just seems like a really small crew, and it's this $12 million movie, and then it gets nominated for all these Oscars. It's really cool. I don't care. I'm gonna keep fawning over it. I don't care. I love it.
Well, you know, and like over and over again, it's been brought up that, you know, like low budgets cultivate inspiration. You know, this tense time frame might have cultivated some inspiration. How do we make this work? Well, and you know, someone just might have said, well, what if we just do this? What if we just like wrestle around and, you know, you do the take and they play around and they're like, that's good. Oh, that's good. Let's shoot it. Like, you know, maybe that's how some of this shit happens.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like we need inspiration right here. We can't shoot right now. Let's go do something over here. And something great happened. They shot with a lot of natural light too. Like you don't see many lighting setups in this movie. And it's just, man. Jeff Bridges walks across the street with that blanket across his shoulders. Oh man. I love this movie. I keep saying
That's
it.
almost like a motif, by the way, like people walking off and gazing out into the open.
Yeah, I love that though. Just walking and you know what I think might have also done a really great job for this crew is the editor Jake Roberts. He was assembling the footage, like they would screen the movie like at the end of the week for cast and crew. So imagine being cast and crew watching some of these scenes. You're like, oh, okay, this is good, and I think that probably makes the rest of the crew like, okay, we're making something good. So then the next week you come back, you want to recreate that. So I think showing this excellent footage to a crew each week, and you know they're in the middle of nowhere, Texas, so you know there's still places to stay in Texas towns, but I've stayed in middle of nowhere Atlanta, Georgia, working on film shoots, and there's really nothing around. So everyone would get together and like Jeff Bridges would play guitar with Birmingham, the two partners, the Marshalls would play guitar, and they play like the Beatles and Dylan, and then they would just drink beer and then do weekly screenings and hang out. And it seems like a cool family affair, man. It would have been a neat shoot to work on. They did shoot 6 days a week, and the days were probably pretty long. But I don't know, man. I'm gonna go back to it. What I love too about this movie is like this was Best Picture nominated. This doesn't like, you know how many movies like this slip through the cracks and aren't? Well, I have a question, John. So many movies slip through the cracks that are excellent during like Oscar season. I'm not even gonna pretend I know about campaigning. I mean, it's the money you spend. But why was this one nominated for Best Picture? Why was this $12 million film nominated for Best Picture?
You know, I do think you brought up a good point about it, and that is that you had this kind of whirlwind of actors that were all at a really good point in their career. I think that right there helps a lot. And then I think that movies. This movie reminded me for some reason of Three Billboards Outside Whatever, Missouri.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. McDonough.
So, yeah, now I know that's like based on a true story, but there's something about that movie where when you're watching it, what I remember in that movie are character moments. What I remember in this movie are character moments. Character moments are probably really the lifeblood of what get us to respond to movies, even when we don't know that it's the character moments that we're responding to.
Yeah. I mean, look at Avengers Age of Ultron. People just love the dinner, like the party scene. That seems to be everyone's favorite scene because people are just hanging out. It's character moments. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? Like
the beats. Aquaman, the bar scene.
Yeah, with the dad. Just having some beers.
And then there's people who wanted to do selfies, like it just.
And they were nice. Yeah, absolutely. I do think I look at my favorite movies, Jaws or Royal Tenenbaums or Doctor Strangelove. I do love the quiet character moments in those as well. And also, I'm definitely a fan of Dr. Pepper over Mr. Pibb. Just want to let you know that.
That was a good.
Well, but I love his speech too about like I've been poor my whole life from generation to generation. But I also like too how like Jeff Bridges is he done? Is Jeff Bridges done with Chris Pine?
Oh, I think I felt like it was pretty clear that they were going to meet again
Yeah,
and that it wasn't going to be good.
yeah.
I think that neither of them were content to leave that on the table, and I think they told each other pretty square. Yeah, which isn't necessarily a way that I would have expected that. But again, Chris Pine's character, he was broken by the world.
Yeah.
There was no victory in this for him. It was avoiding his kids living his failures again, I think, is what he was concerned with. So it's not like he was doing something where it's this win and now they have money for college or whatever it is specifically, even though that is an end by that means. He's checked out.
I would almost be
I
doing him a favor almost because he's just life is kind of tough for him right now.
And when they both say, maybe I'll give you peace, maybe I'll give it to you, I don't really think that was, a dick measuring contest. I think it was just matter of fact, you know what? You might give it to me or I might give it to you. I
Yeah.
really think it was that I'm going to flip a coin. It might be heads. Well, it also might be tails. I think it was that matter of fact.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. It wasn't during the bank scene where she calls him stupid and then Ben Foster goes, "You're stupid." It's
Call me stupid again.
yeah. I think yeah, it's the two of them stating facts to each other. It's not like John, hey, come over here and say that. No, you come over here and say
Why
that.
don't you come over here?
Yeah, take a step, take a step. No, you take a step.
Maybe I will.
Yeah, maybe I will. 30 minutes later, come on, man, come on.
Right.
Like you guys have moved 5 feet backwards. But yeah, no, these two, when they say, they mean it. This is yeah, these aren't. This isn't a you're stupid or step over to me moment. This is we're gonna meet. And oh man, I got goosebumps. I love. Also, it's cool. It was cool seeing Amber Midthunder in this movie too. She's the bank teller who gets robbed, and now she's in Prey, and she was in Legion.
Oh, her. Okay, yeah, the
Yeah,
young girl.
yeah, and she's wiping people out now, which makes me so happy. But no, man, dude, I'm just glad we talked about this film. This has been on my mind for a long time, and I know you were a fan, and I think just the character dynamic seems like something you kind of love. I think, and I love too. So I'm just glad we got to revisit this. Also, I'm really glad that this gave me an opportunity to read about Taylor Sheridan and how his wife maxed her credit cards out just so he could have Final Draft to write scripts that got him Oscar nominations, and now he's doing Yellowstone, making millions, and 1883, and Mayor of Kingstown, and this, this cool, humble beginnings. I liked hearing a lot about the way he writes his screenplays. He doesn't write camera pans. He just makes it very descriptive. You know what I've learned though? So there's a really good interview with him, and it's about 30 some minutes, but it's on YouTube, and I listened to it. Paul Thomas Anderson, the director of Boogie Nights, he made a movie, his first film, where the script, well, he wasn't quite specific in his script. So then it's like guy walks across the lot. Like, well, I'm just gonna walk across the lot. So people kind of abused him on that. So when he wrote the script for Boogie Nights, he wrote, "Oh, there's a 1 minute unbroken take of a guy walking across the lot. A guy walks into the room. There's 14 bar patrons. Like, so he wrote every number so that they couldn't be like, oh, guy, because Taylor Sheridan's like, a guy walks into a bar, the bar's packed. He's like, there'll be 6 people in that bar. Like, they're not going to pay to pack a bar. So I thought it was pretty funny that they learned how to just say a guy walks into a sparsely, occupied diner with 12 people in it. Like, but I don't know. I think that's a cool script writing technique where you read it and you're like, crap, we got to get 12 people. Because if you walk in and there's 4, you're like, well, I said 12. Like, I don't know. I like that. That was cool. But I learned some really cool trade stuff about this film. I loved reading about Taylor Sheridan. Learned, like, Chris Pine, I mean, he was only on set for 3 weeks. 3 weeks, John. That's a lot of, like, 1 take, 2 take shots.
Even still, you said 5 weeks for the whole thing. That's fast.
Yeah. And you know what, though? What I like about this movie is it didn't try to. Sometimes you feel a movie when it gets stretched. This movie, that's why I love the 2 shots of all the characters, the wide shots of the 2 of them just looking out on the porch. That saved them a ton of coverage. But it looks beautiful too, and it also creates a pretty neat visual language throughout the film. And I also like that this movie takes 8 minutes to get to the credits, which makes me happy. For all the robberies, and also I love this line when someone's talking to Bridges, and they're like, "How are you going to survive without having someone to outsmart?" And that made me really happy because Jeff Bridges' character did not want to retire, but I love that line. So hey, I have an idea, John. I was thinking about this. Let's do this real quick. Can we do a 21st century Western, neo-Western, Westernish draft.
Oh dear.
But there's so many, like 310 to Yuma. I mean, there's tons of them. So I don't think it'll be too hard. But I want to do this because there's been so many good ones. So you can do Western adjacent. You can do whatever you want. Western films, 21st century. And then if you have a list, send it to us. If you're listening to this episode, let us know. So I'll let you have first pick since I dropped this on you, John.
Well, I picked 310 to Yuma. That stuck in my head just because of Ben Foster. I was thinking of that a lot while watching this movie.
All right, so 310 to Yuma. Oh, that's so good. I'm going to lose.
I have trouble thinking of others, though.
I'm going to lose, and I'm going to say the good, the bad, the weird.
Oh, that's a good pick. That's a really good pick.
But I mean,
what was that recent Netflix movie?
That
had like Idris Elba as the bad guy.
Oh, The Harder They Fall.
The Harder They Fall. I'm tempted to. I'm actually just struggling to think of things, and that popped in my mind.
Let me read a couple to you.
I enjoyed that.
I mean, there's Open Range. There's the Book of Eli. There's The Proposition, The Devil's Rejects, The Ballad of Buster Scruggs, Ain't Them Body Saints, Logan, No Country for Old Men. You could do, let's see.
My choice would be No Country. Country for Old.
You got it.
I'm gonna do that one.
All right, so No Country for Old Men.
What was your first pick again?
The Good, the Bad, and the Weird.
Good, the Bad, and the Weird.
I'm gonna take
Such a good choice.
I'm gonna take The Harder They Fall because I love that movie. I love that movie.
You're taking the two weird movies, and I'm taking the two dire movies.
But they're great, man.
21st century. It's a shame The Quick and the Dead is from the 90s.
Sicario's on there. Hell or High Water. You can take that. The Assassination of Jesse James. The Way of the Gun, I would say is definitely a Western. The Revenant. Django Unchained. Hateful Eight.
Okay, I'll do Django. I like Django. I just realized I'm still following that trend of what I just said. These dire movies.
You got a beautiful squad, man. Let's see. So I am going to take. What am I going to do? I'm going to take The Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford because I think that was shot. It was shot by Roger Deakins, and I think it's one of my favorite looking movies of the 21st century. All right, who you got? Type it in.
I always feel like I'm.
Nah, go for it. Brokeback Mountain.
Ooh, that's a good. Ooh.
You want that one?
No, I want Bone Tomahawk.
Oh, that was my next pick. That movie is so good. I'm gonna take Logan because.
Okay, that one I would think of as a Western, even though I wouldn't have thought of it on my own. I don't think.
But when I do this, I'm gonna put best Western, neo-Western, Westernish movie, so people can't complain and be like, "Oh, Logan's not a Western." All right, what are you gonna do? What you got next? Django Unchained, so good.
Oh. Boy, I'm really, I don't know why all the movies that pop out to me are following the same vein, but I'm gonna say The Hateful Eight.
Yeah, no, perfect. The Hateful Eight. All right.
All of mine are like the brutal movies.
I love it, man. You picked it. You have some great picks. Let's see. All right, I want to go funky. I kind of thinking. I mean, listen, I love Brokeback Mountain. I think that's a really strong pick. Rango is pretty fun. True Grit.
Brokeback. I was tempted to go for Brokeback. That was a great film.
There Will Be Blood. But you know what?
That dude, yeah. If I had thought of that, that would have been on my table. That was serious too.
I'm gonna take Brokeback Mountain. So you got.
Brokeback.
I love all these movies. This is a beautiful. The Hateful Eight has Sam Jackson and Walton Goggins hanging around at the end of it. Like you have to love that movie. So you have 310 to Yuma, No Country for Old Men, Django Unchained, Bone Tomahawk, Kurt Russell, our boy Curdy Rutz. Well, you have two Curdy Rutz, Hateful Eight and Bone Tomahawk. I have The Good, the Bad, and the Weird.
And I couldn't pick, obviously.
Oh wait, we didn't do this one
because we're not.
What's not?
If Tombstone could have been in there, if we were going back to the 90s, it would have been a totally different list.
Well, that's why I was like, I'm not going to do the 90s because Tombstone is kind of like the final move. It's Jean-Claude Van Damme's yelling and then split kick into the balls. Like, you're done.
Or he does a jump spin kick and then they shoot the same thing from 3 different cameras and it's like a replay of the same kick 3 times.
Exactly.
And you're like, how'd that guy just stand there and get jump spin kicked 3 times in a row?
It's almost an instant fatality if you have Tombstone on your team. But yeah, I'll just say we talked about Hell or High Water. And yeah, and also there's been so many movies released in the 21st century that are neo-westerns. But you have 310 to Yuma, No Country for Old Men, Django Unchained, Bone Tomahawk, The Hateful Eight. I have The Good, the Bad, the Weird, The Harder They Fall, The Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford, Logan, and Brokeback Mountain. I love these.
So you have three of the really stylish ones, though.
Yeah, I went for style for sure. I mean, The Good, Bad, and the Weird, Hardly Fall, and the Assassination of Jesse James. I mean, Logan's just almost a Shane-esque type movie. You know, the old gunslinger called back into it, and Brokeback Mountain's more of like the love story, but it's still a western. So yeah, I'm very happy. This is good.
The mine are mean.
Yeah, Bone Tomahawk. Ooh.
Mine are just mean.
I love it.
Oh man, if we had the 90s, I'd have Maverick.
All right, you know what? Let's have some fun real quick. I'll post two. John, let's do a let's do a 90s westerns, 80s and 90s. All right, so which one you picking first?
Let's not do Tombstone. Let's just agree not to include Tombstone.
And I'll put that in parentheses because people will be like, "You didn't pick Tombstone, you lose." So all
right. So I'm gonna go for a steal. Young Guns.
Well, you know what?
I'm just playing dirty.
I'm going Young Guns too. I'll make you
Young
famous.
Guns too?
I'll make you famous. And this one with the Bon Jovi song.
I want Dances with Wolves.
Yeah, that's really good. That's a good one. Dances with Wolves. You know what? I spent a lot of time talking about Silverado. So I did a Silverado Minute podcast. I did with 5 minutes of it. So I'm going to take Silverado. I'll make you famous.
I'm going to go Maverick.
Oh, man. I missed a good one. All right. You know what, John? Tell me if this works or not. Tremors.
I accept. I accept. That I'm going to call that like a stylish Western.
Yeah. I'm very happy. Oh, man. I hope you don't get this movie. I got one I want. All right. What are you going to do next?
Desperado.
Oh, that's really good. I don't get jealous much. I'm actually really happy for your team, but that's a great pick. All right, so I'm gonna take The Quick and the Dead because I love Sam Raimi.
That's a good choice. That's a good choice.
I love Sam Raimi westerns.
I've been toying with picking it the last two picks, so it's good. I'm gonna go. I have two more picks.
Yeah.
Desperado.
Wait, you already had Desperado. I thought you picked Desperado. You have Young Guns, Dance With Wolves, Maverick, and Desperado.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, what's your fifth pick?
That was my fourth pick.
Yeah.
I just made it. Now it's your pick.
Oh no, so you have I have Young Guns 2, Silverado, Tremors, Quick and the Dead. So
this is my fifth.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. For some reason I thought that I went first. Ooh, okay.
This is funny. You said Young Guns and I said Young Guns 2.
Okay, I kind of want to go a little silly. Oh, no. Vampires. John Carpenter's Vampires.
Oh my gosh, that's a good one. That's
you have a pick left?
Yeah, I have one left. Dude, talk about mean movies. That opening massacre is that's nuts. All right, you know what? I'm gonna take Pale Rider. I love Pale Rider, and I'm gonna pick Pale Rider, and I'm gonna be happy about it. So Pale Rider.
You know what I almost picked?
What?
I almost picked The Cowboy Way.
Oh, I almost went City Slickers. Oh, dude, I love it. So you have Young Guns, Dance with Wolves, Maverick, Desperado, John Carpenter's Vampires. That's fun. I have Young Guns 2, Silverado, Tremors, The Quick and the Dead, and Pale Rider.
You should take the winner of each of those draft competitions and put them up against each other.
I'll do that. That'll be fun. All right, yeah, this was good, man. John, thank you so much for joining me, and tell people where to find you.
John's Horror Corner everywhere at MFF Horror Corner on Twitter, John's Horror Corner on Instagram, and John's Horror Corner on the tab at the top of Movies, Films, and Flicks.
Yeah, you'll find him. Follow his Instagram, his beer pairings with movies. You'll adore. They're lovely. I love seeing that. Also, I really need to watch. You wrote a review for a movie called. It's a 2022 horror film that's on Shudder. And Glorious. I want to watch that movie. You've sold me on it. So
that was very impressive.
Good.
It's low budget. You don't feel it hard. The writing is really good, and it works. That's the other thing. A lot of these low budget things, they just have a good gimmick or good gore, and it doesn't play out with good synthesis. This works.
It's nice to see Ryan Quanten getting a good role.
Yeah, he's had a few. I like keeping track of the horror movies people are in. Whenever I say what horror movies people are in when I write a horror movie review, I usually just mention their horror movies. So he was in Dead Silence.
Oh yeah.
And while it wasn't a good film in my opinion, at all, moderately entertaining, he was in Flight 7500, which was actually delayed for a couple years, which gave it a lot of interesting following among the horror community leading up to its release.
That's what you
I
need.
think that was Takashi Miike, in fact.
That's what you need to do, John. If you ever make a bad movie, just delay it for 2 years.
Well, you know, I mean, you have like Cabin in the Woods got delayed. That's amazing.
Oh yeah, but that was like MGM rights. But that built the you're no good point. Good point. But no, this was lovely, man, and thank you so much for joining me. I love this movie. I like our drafts. This was a good time.
Yep. And you know what? Watching it twice gave me an excuse to share it with someone who had never seen it.
Yeah, heck yeah. I'm glad Sarah liked it.
She was sold.
Well, if you haven't
sold.
if you haven't watched it, watch it. It's a beautiful flick, and this was a good time. So for me, Mark Hoffmeyer, for John Levengood, this is Movies, Films, and Flicks. We'll see you next week.